If the US enters recession, these 10 states will collapse first. Imagine living in a state where just one recession could wipe out thousands of jobs, crash the housing market, and leave budgets billions in the red. In 2025, over $140 billion in pension debt, 30% unemployment spikes, and home prices falling by 25% are real risks for some US states. So, which ones are standing on this financial cliff? Which economies are propped up by unstable industries, underwater mortgages, or overstretched budgets? In this video, we're diving into 10 major US states that are dangerously close to the edge, and one economic shock could send them spiraling. Number 10. Arizona. Arizona's booming desert cities like Phoenix and Tucson may feel like economic oases, but behind the palm trees and rising skylines, there's a storm brewing, and it's all about debt, housing, and overheating growth. Since 2020, home prices in Phoenix have surged by more than 40%, outpacing wage growth by a mile. That might sound great if you already own a home, but for the average buyer, it's a ticking time bomb. The median home price now hovers around $450,000, while the state's median household income is just over $72,000. That's a ratio worse than the national average and puts a ton of financial pressure on families already battling high interest rates and inflation. Arizona also has a serious affordability gap when it comes to rent. In cities like Flagstaff and Scottsdale, rent has shot up 20% since 2022. Combine that with one of the highest credit card debt averages in the US, around $6,000 per person, and you've got a population living paycheck to paycheck, even in paradise. Google Trends data in 2024 even showed a huge spike in searches for foreclosure help and how to refinance mortgage from Arizona zip codes. Employment-wise, Arizona relies heavily on housing construction and tourism, industries that usually take a beating during economic downturns. If a recession hits and building projects slow down or tourism dips, thousands of jobs could disappear fast. In fact, over 8% of Arizona's workforce is tied to real estate-related jobs compared to just 5% nationally. That's a big deal. Even GDP growth is showing signs of strain. What was once a 5.1% boom in 2021 has tapered off to under 2.5% in 2024. Adding to the challenges, water shortages threaten development, and rising property insurance costs in wildfire-prone areas make the situation worse. Arizona might be sunny and scenic, but if the US enters a recession, this desert jewel could see its economy crack wide open. Buckle up, Grand Canyon State, you're more at risk than you think. Number 9. North Carolina. North Carolina's got charm, no doubt. Between the Blue Ridge Mountains and its booming tech hubs like Raleigh and Charlotte, it feels like a state on the rise. But here's the twist. That very boom is what's making it so vulnerable in a recession. Let's start with housing. From 2020 to 2024, home prices in cities like Raleigh jumped nearly 50%, while median household income only increased by about 14%. That gap spells trouble. Now, in 2025, mortgage rates are hovering around 7%, and refinancing has plummeted by over 80% across the state. That means homeowners are stuck with high monthly payments, and many are barely hanging on. Consumer spending is another pressure point. North Carolina is home to more than 10 million people, and a large percentage of them work in retail, hospitality, and service industries, sectors that get hit first when recessions strike. As of late 2024, more than 34% of households in the state reported struggling to pay usual household expenses, a clear red flag. Unemployment is still relatively low at 3.5%, but layoffs in the banking and tech sectors have already begun, and more are expected if the economy dips further. Then there's real estate. Charlotte and Raleigh were both on the at-risk markets list in a 2024 housing stability report. Prices are starting to wobble, and if home values drop significantly, it could wipe out equity for thousands of new homeowners who bought during the post-pandemic surge. North Carolina also faces rural vulnerabilities. Small towns across the state lack economic diversity, and are heavily reliant on agriculture and small manufacturing. If supply chains get disrupted or global demand falls, these areas could be devastated quickly. Add in high personal debt loads. Average credit card debt per household sits around $6,200, and you've got an economy that's feeling stretched. So, while North Carolina may look healthy from a distance, a closer inspection reveals shaky ground beneath the glossy growth. If a US recession rolls in, the Tar Heel state might just find itself losing its economic footing fast. Number 8. Florida. Florida is America's playground, with its sunny beaches, theme parks, and booming real estate. But when the economy cools down, Florida doesn't just catch a cold, it catches a hurricane of problems. Tourism and real estate are its lifelines, and both are extremely recession sensitive. In 2023 alone, tourism accounted for over $100 billion in revenue. But when consumers cut travel and vacation budgets in tough times, Florida's economy starts bleeding jobs, and fast. During the COVID-era recession, Florida lost more than 1.1 million jobs in just 2 months. That kind of rapid collapse could happen again. Now let's talk housing. Median home prices in parts of Miami-Dade hit over $600,000 in 2024, yet the average household income lags at under $70,000. That mismatch is unsustainable. Add in soaring insurance premiums, up more than 40% year-over-year in hurricane-prone zones, and owning a home is becoming a risky financial gain. Already, delinquencies on mortgages have increased by 22% since late 2023, and property values in Tampa and Orlando are starting to decline. Another ticking time bomb: Florida's elderly population. Nearly 21% of residents are over the age of 65, many living on fixed incomes. Inflation has ravaged their purchasing power, and Medicare strain is rising. That demographic is especially vulnerable to housing, food, and medical cost spikes, all of which worsen during recessions. Job diversity is also an issue. Hospitality, real estate, and service industries dominate employment but offer low-wage stability. When tourism dries up, so do paychecks. Florida also ranks in the top 5 for credit card debt, averaging $8,500 per household, and emergency savings rates are among the lowest in the nation. So, while palm trees and amusement parks paint a rosy postcard, the real economy is much shakier than it seems. If a recession strikes in 2025, the Sunshine State could find itself in a deep financial shadow fast. Number 7. Tennessee. Tennessee might be all music and mountains on the surface, but beneath that southern charm is an economy with serious fault lines. The volunteer state has grown fast, especially cities like Nashville, but not all regions have shared the wealth. Rural counties still rely on agriculture and small-scale manufacturing, both of which are vulnerable during a downturn. In 2024, Tennessee ranked second in the nation for counties most at risk of job loss during a recession, with over 55% of its counties labeled economically fragile. While Nashville is thriving in healthcare and tech, large swaths of the state still rely on logistics, warehousing, and auto manufacturing. These sectors saw a hiring boom from 2022 to 2023, but that wave is already slowing. A recession would hit these industries like a hammer. Amazon and FedEx, 2 of the biggest employers in the state, have already cut thousands of jobs since mid-2023. Debt is another pressure point. Tennessee households carry an average credit card balance of over $7,000, and personal savings are below the national average. Inflation has eaten away at buying power, especially in smaller cities like Clarksville or Johnson City, where wages haven't kept pace. Meanwhile, housing costs in Nashville have jumped over 30% since 2020, pushing many locals into risky mortgages or high-rent situations. Healthcare is also a growing concern. Tennessee has one of the highest rates of rural hospital closures in the country, making medical access harder during tough times. Nearly 1 in 6 residents are on Medicaid, and any federal cuts during a recession would hit hard. So, while Tennessee may look like it's stepping into prosperity, its economic foundations are a little too shaky for comfort. One big national downturn, and this country star might be singing the blues. Number 6, Kentucky. Kentucky is rich in bourbon, bluegrass, and basketball pride, but when it comes to economic resilience, the bluegrass state is walking a tightrope. Its traditional economic backbone, coal mining and manufacturing, has been steadily shrinking, replaced slowly by logistics and agriculture. But here's the problem: both sectors are highly sensitive to national demand, and in a recession, that demand disappears quickly. Over the past decade, Kentucky has lost more than 13,000 coal jobs, and manufacturing employment has stagnated. In 2024, the state's GDP growth was just 1.4%, compared to the national average of 2.2%. Rural vulnerability is another key issue. Nearly 41% of Kentucky's population lives in rural counties, where job diversity is minimal, broadband access is limited, and hospital closures are becoming alarmingly common. In fact, Kentucky ranks among the top 5 states for rural hospital closures since 2010. Adding to the pressure, Kentucky has a poverty rate of 16.5%, higher than the US average, leaving thousands of households that could quickly fall into economic despair if a recession hits. Wages are a sticking point, too. The state's median household income is just under $60,000. Inflation has driven up essential costs, especially for food and fuel, and many Kentuckians are now spending nearly 30% of their monthly income on basic groceries and utilities. Credit card debt is also on the rise, averaging over $6,700 per household. Housing costs, while not as inflated as coastal states, have seen significant increases, with cities like Lexington and Louisville experiencing a 35% jump since 2020. With interest rates topping 7%, a $250,000 home feels unaffordable for the average buyer. So, while Kentucky's heart may be strong, its economy is built on fragile ground. A national downturn could bring layoffs, bankruptcies, and financial stress that ripple from the cities to the hills. Number 5, Illinois. Illinois may be home to America's 3rd largest city, but don't let Chicago's shiny skyline fool you. Beneath the surface, the state is battling some serious economic demons. For starters, the state's pension crisis is massive, with unfunded liabilities exceeding $140 billion. That's more than the GDP of Ukraine, and if revenues dip during a recession, that financial black hole only gets deeper. Illinois already spends over 20% of its budget just servicing pension obligations, leaving little wiggle room for essential services during an economic crunch. Corporate relocations are also hitting hard. Major companies like Boeing and Caterpillar have recently moved operations out of Illinois, citing high taxes and an unfriendly business climate. This means job losses, reduced investment, and slower economic momentum. In 2024, Illinois saw net migration losses for the 6th straight year, with over 105,000 people leaving the state, many citing cost of living and crime in urban areas. Housing is another pain point. A 2024 real estate report flagged Illinois as one of 3 states at risk of a housing price crash. In Chicago, the median home price dropped 8% year-over-year, and in suburbs like Rockford and Peoria, foreclosures have climbed by 15%. Combine this with rising property taxes, the 2nd highest in the nation, and middle-class homeowners are feeling the squeeze. Even the job market isn't safe. Illinois unemployment rate sits above the national average at 4.7%, with sharp declines in retail, logistics, and manufacturing employment. The state also has one of the highest per capita debts in the country, over $25,000 per resident. And don't forget about crime, especially in Chicago, where it further discourages tourism and investment during unstable times. So, while Illinois might look stable on paper, the foundation is already showing cracks. A national recession could turn those cracks into a full-blown collapse, leaving thousands scrambling to keep up with bills, taxes, and mounting debt. Number 4, California. California might have the world's 5th largest economy, bigger than the UK, but don't let that fool you. Behind the sunshine and Silicon Valley shine lies a fragile system teetering on financial imbalance. For starters, California's cost of living is outrageous. The median home price statewide sits around $765,000, while the median household income is just under $85,000. That's nearly 9 times the income, well above the affordability threshold, and mortgage rates around 7% aren't helping either. The job market is another issue. While California was once the tech job capital, mass layoffs from giants like Meta, Google, and Salesforce wiped out over 55,000 jobs in 2023 alone. The tech sector, once responsible for explosive GDP growth, is now facing AI disruptions and post-pandemic corrections. And when Silicon Valley catches a cold, California sneezes, that impact trickles into housing, retail, and services statewide. The state is also hemorrhaging residents. In 2024, over 350,000 Californians packed up and left, moving to states like Texas and Arizona. The reasons? High taxes, soaring rents, and safety concerns. Property crime and homelessness are exploding in cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles. Meanwhile, California faces a budget deficit of more than $68 billion in 2025, forcing potential cuts to social services and infrastructure. Real estate red flags are also popping up. 3 California counties, Los Angeles, Santa Clara, and Sacramento, are now officially on bubble watch. Analysts expect home values in these areas to drop by 15% to 25% during the next downturn. That means millions in lost equity and a big hit to consumer spending. California also has the highest poverty rate when adjusted for cost of living, and energy prices remain among the highest in the nation, double those in places like Idaho or Utah. So, yes, California shines bright, but its economy is walking a tightrope over a canyon of debt, dependency, and overvaluation. If a national recession hits hard, even this economic giant could find itself in freefall. Number 3, Nevada. Nevada's no stranger to boom and bust cycles. Las Vegas practically invented them. But in a recession, this glittering desert oasis doesn't just dim the lights, it shuts down entire neighborhoods. Why? Because nearly 25% of Nevada's GDP depends on tourism, hospitality, and entertainment. That's higher than any other state. When Americans cut back on vacations, show tickets, and casino nights, Nevada takes the first punch. During the 2020 COVID crash, Nevada's unemployment rate soared to 30.1%, the highest in the country. While jobs rebounded, many workers returned to part-time roles or gig jobs with no benefits. In 2024, nearly 28% of workers in Nevada were classified as vulnerably employed, a critical stat if a recession hits and layoffs ramp up again. Housing is another flashpoint. Las Vegas home prices surged over 40% between 2020 and 2022, but cracks are showing. In 2024 alone, prices dipped 6%, and mortgage delinquencies rose by 18% year-over-year. Renters aren't safe either. Vegas now has one of the fastest rising eviction rates in the nation, up 32% from 2022 levels. And it's not just Vegas. Reno, once a rising tech hub, is facing slowing job growth and rising vacancy rates. Many of these cities were riding high on speculative real estate markets and out-of-state migration, but the momentum is slowing hard. Nevada also suffers from a lack of economic diversification. Beyond hospitality and real estate, there's little to cushion the fall. The state's rainy day fund is small, and state revenues fluctuate wildly with casino taxes. If gambling dips, so does the state's ability to fund education, healthcare, and emergency services. So, when the national economy falters, Nevada doesn't have a parachute, it has a pair of dice. In 2025, it looks like the house might not win this time. If recession hits, expect layoffs, foreclosures, and shuttered casinos faster than you can say jackpot. Number 2, Texas. Texas loves to say it's recession-proof. After all, it's got a $2.4 trillion economy, the second largest in the US. But here's the reality. Despite its swagger and oil-fueled growth, Texas is quietly teetering on the edge. It's not just about big GDP, it's about who's holding the financial burden, and that's where things get shaky. Start with household finances. The average credit score in Texas is 692, below the national average of 716. In 2024, Texans search for how to get emergency loans and help paying bills more than residents of any other state, according to Google Trends. A shocking 34% of Texans reported struggling to pay basic expenses. That's 1/3 of the population under financial stress before a recession even starts. Real estate is another weak link. Home prices in Austin doubled between 2015 and 2022, but in 2024, values dropped 8.7% year-over-year. Foreclosures are rising fast, up 19% in Houston alone. Property taxes are also crushing middle-class homeowners. Texas has no state income tax, but it makes up for it with some of the highest property taxes in the nation, often exceeding 2.5%. The job market is booming, but not all jobs are equal. Many workers in Texas are in gig work, construction, or service industries, fields that evaporate in recessions. In fact, more than 41% of Texas workers earn less than $40,000 a year. A sudden downturn could wipe out entire income sources for millions. Texas also faces growing urban strain. Cities like Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio are grappling with housing shortages, rising crime, overloaded hospitals, and stressed infrastructure. Let's not forget climate costs. Extreme heat and droughts are adding pressure to electric grids and water systems, with economic consequences. So, while Texas may boast its "don't mess with us" pride, its economy is a lot more fragile than people think. If the US enters recession, Texas won't be immune. It'll be in for a very rough ride. Number 1, Michigan. Welcome to Michigan, the state with lakes, legends, and the highest recession risk in America. In 2024, a major national study ranked Michigan number 1 for financial distress, and the warning signs are only getting louder. With the auto industry as its lifeline, Michigan's economy is vulnerable to every economic tremor. When car demand drops during recessions, Michigan bleeds jobs. In early 2025, over 15% of Michigan residents had at least one delinquent loan, credit card, car, or mortgage. The state also leads in auto loan defaults, with Detroit and Flint topping national charts. The scary part? Over 140,000 auto jobs in Michigan are at risk due to automation and declining EV margins. If a recession hits and car sales fall, the layoffs could be brutal. The housing market isn't helping either. Detroit home prices rose quickly between 2020 and 2023, but in 2024, they saw a 7% decline and a 23% rise in foreclosures. Property values are fragile, and with many buyers having purchased with thin margins, equity is vanishing fast. Michigan also faces high poverty in post-industrial cities. In Flint, over 38% of residents live below the poverty line. In Detroit, it's around 30%. Combine that with weak public infrastructure, underfunded schools, and one of the nation's highest rates of financial literacy challenges, and you get a population more vulnerable than most. Healthcare access is another issue. Many counties in Michigan are facing doctor shortages and hospital closures, which strain already fragile support systems. Plus, winter utility costs are through the roof, with heating bills expected to rise 12% this year, putting pressure on fixed-income households. So, while Michigan has deep cultural roots and hard-working people, its economic armor is cracking. If a recession hits, Michigan could face massive layoffs, housing instability, and deep financial hardship, faster and harder than any other state. And there you have it, another incredible journey through the world's most stunning destinations, hidden gems, and unforgettable experiences. If you're feeling inspired and ready to explore the beauty and diversity of our planet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join us on our next adventure. At Travel the World, we believe that every corner of the Earth has a story to tell, and we're here to share it with you, one breathtaking location at a time. From serene beaches to bustling cities, we've got plenty more destinations waiting to be discovered. So, don't forget to like, comment, and share the travel love. Tell us where you'd like us to go next in the comments below. Until next time, keep exploring and remember, the world is full of wonders, and your next adventure could be just a click away. See you on the next journey.